Welcome everybody here back at Veil of Sound, and I'm very, very happy to have someone on the show, or someone back here on the show, who has already done an interview with us, and I looked it up. We published it on January 15th, 23. More than 2.5 years ago, I already had the pleasure of talking to Tristan from Author and Punisher. So Tristan, thanks for being back on the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's always our pleasure. And Tristan, a few things stay the same, a few things are changed. So now here we have an opening category that I would like to call the plug of the day. You can think of an artist, a band, a project that you would like to plug, that you think needs a little bit more appreciation. And I will start with one to which you also have a relationship, and that is Arca. You did some machines for her, right?
Yes, I think back in 2023, actually, she asked me if she could sort of use some of my machines for her Los Angeles performance, which is about 2 hours north of where I live. And these were some of my older machines, like the really heavy ones. Mm-hmm. And so I brought them up to her performance, and we sort of like met in a practice space, and like she messed around with stuff for a while. We set up an Ableton session sort of geared towards what she wanted to do. And then she ended up using them for a couple more shows throughout the US. And then she had a big show in the Armory in New York, which is like a giant warehouse space where she had like a performance for 4 nights in a row, kind of like a residency. Mm-hmm. And so I built her something custom for that based on some instruments that I had already been working on. And then this big CDJ table that had her CDJs and then my machines on top of it, so she could sort of manipulate they worked together, and it was hanging from chains, so it was like kind of like brutal looking.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures and some videos. It looked amazing and sounded really good.
Yeah, it was very cool. So and then a more recent this year, I did a different configuration of that same setup, but yeah. I guess if I want to plug a band, I mean, God, let me just look back through I think I know who I want to plug, because I'm never going to plug the things that people think I'm going to plug. It would have to be Ghost Dubs, which is, I'm a big fan of dub and like reggae and, dubstep, drum and bass, that kind of stuff. So when I'm like hanging out, I mostly listen to like dub, and Ghost Dubs is a project. I think they're out of Germany, and it was put out on Kevin Martin from the Bugs label. Mm-hmm. And I think they've done different versions of the same album, but it's just kind of like epic, heavy, kind of minimal dub and bass, not in the sort of techno way, but like more like slower, Mm-hmm. And I love that shit, and I can't get enough of it. And it's been the album that's been the most on rotation for me throughout the year.
Oh, that is always a good sign. If so late in the year, one can already say, okay, I've listened to this over and over again. For the last couple of weeks, I've been listening over and over to Nocturnal Birding, your new record, which when this one comes out, it will be out 2 days. So if you haven't listened to the record yet, please do yourself a favor and listen to it, because Tristan is able to combine a lot of the qualities that his last record, Krüller, had, and also some of the really heavy shit that he did before. The first question that I have to ask is, Tristan, which hobby is more important for you, football or ornithology?
I missed the first, which one is more?
Football, or as you would call it,
soccer. Ornithology, man, they sort of occupy different spaces for me, so they don't interfere with each other, which is nice. Although sometimes, because we have to watch the fucking Premier League matches, the first one is at 4:30 in the morning, so Liverpool plays Everton tomorrow morning at 4:30 a.m. for me, and I usually get up to go hiking at around sometimes like 4:30, because it gets really hot here now. Yeah. So sometimes I can watch a little bit of the game match before I have my coffee, and then I'm on the trail checking the scores. But ornithology for me is sort of something that I can't really say I'm a bird watcher. Some people have said like, oh, what's that bird? It's more so that I do use an app called Merlin, where I can recognize bird sounds, developed at Cornell. Uses some like computer learning or one of these software algorithms to recognize and match the bird sounds. It's really helped me recognize and appreciate what I'm listening to. Mm-hmm. But it's more just slowing down and, you know, not always thinking about the next thing that you have to do, and just sitting there and being present for the sounds that occupy your space. And it allows me to separate my life out into like, okay, I'm doing this now, and now I'm doing this, and I'm not going to think about this other thing until I'm actually there. And I feel like it's slowed life down for me a little bit and allowed me to appreciate. And, you know, when everything just seems like it's going so fast because you're only thinking about the future, you're never thinking about right now.
Mm-hmm. So it's helping you compartmentalize things into little sections, eh?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's not to say that I don't, like, when I'm hiking, I listen to my songs so that I can, like, memorize the lyrics or, like, think about the rhythms. I have to practice, like, air drum my machine, like, a lot, because the coordination, especially on this album, there's some faster songs. But yeah, just birds in general, like, I feel like it's at this age of 47, I have acknowledged the existence of birds. It's like I've heard them for the first time, and it's amazing. I mean, like, they've always been here, but my mind has been elsewhere. I haven't been able to process and listen properly. And yeah, just having a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or a beer in the afternoon and just sitting and just like closing your eyes and just chilling out. And,
so is it as if you feel that now your present has shifted a little bit so that you are able to open yourself more to other things?
Yeah, I think so. And I've become better at like, I'm always obsessed with this music thing and all the gear and thinking about it. And sometimes when I go to sleep, it would be that I would just be like, I couldn't sleep because I had to solve this problem or get this thing machined or whatever. And now I'm like, I'm more confident, and I know, like, okay, we're going to wake up in the morning and we're going to figure that out. Laptop. But right now I'm going to sit here and be present for this thing that I'm working on.
Yeah. Does it also have to do a little bit with what happened to you at the beginning of 2024 when the flood basically, I don't want to say destroyed, but, you know, like, wrecked some of your studio?
Yeah, I mean, that was certainly kind of a huge fucking pain in the ass, and dealing with the city, and there's still a giant lawsuit that I'm not really a part of. I think it's the actual the people that own we're in this sort of collective practice space studio. Yeah. It's a really amazing spot, but the folks who manage that spot, Demetrius and Rob, really had the hard work to do. They had to rebuild everything, and I took part in a little bit of that, but the credit goes to them, and the stress really was on their shoulders. I didn't lose that much because I only had about $7,000 worth of stuff on the ground that got destroyed. And they had to replace everything, you know, like rip out all the walls everywhere, you know?
So, but was that the space where you also built your gear and other people's gear, or is that partially there, partially somewhere else?
I practice in there. I record my albums. You know, Will Putney and like Kurt Ballou and other people have mixed them in the past, but I record them there and do a lot of mixing myself. And I have a studio in there. There's a shared space, and then I have a studio where I practice and do like assembly, like electronics. But from machining, we machine stuff at machine shops now for the most part. So I don't do a lot of the machining myself. We get PCBs made at PCB fab circuit spots. And I have 2 programmers now who are helping me.
By the way, I have to ask about those programmers because the name of one struck me. Is Henry related to Kim Tayil?
No. Common Indian last name.
Okay, I didn't know that.
No, yeah, exactly. I know I think that's that a lot, but I've seen that. I'm on a campus that has a lot of Indian students, and I see that name pop up a lot.
So you said like you have 2 people now working with you, and
Yeah, Henri was helping me mostly on the Arca project. She was great, and now she's off to doing her own thing. She makes her own music, her own instruments and programming. But no, I've got a couple other people. Somebody who does circuit design and then firmware programming, and then a UI architect. Who's a friend, an old industrial friend of mine, and then one of my best friends, Adam Reed Erickson, who's like one of my old mechanical engineer friends, and then a synth guy named by the name of Viter. And so we've sort of been doing this all along. But it's just very hard to put a product out. This, especially what we're building, because it's a lot of, I know I've been saying this for years and years that this is going to happen, but I think we've sort of changed products over the years. And also, from a mechanical perspective, the stuff I'm making is pretty expensive. And then also, from an electronics perspective, we have a lot of I/O. We have like motors, MIDI, modular synth, some audio, like all sorts of stuff, and it all needs to work seamlessly so that I don't get like a million messages on some like forum saying like, "Why doesn't my thing work?" Yeah. So,
and we also have to be quite honest about it. I mean, like, it's still a niche thing. It's not as if you would be working in a market where you sell 10,000 units a year.
Yeah, and that's a problem, and so we have to be careful about like the price. Usually when I build my one-offs, everything is like super. There's ants getting into my shorts right now. I gotta move. Don't want ants in your shorts. I'm just gonna walk over here. Yeah,
no problem.
There's I think like the price point is difficult. Although when you look at like one of these like Scandinavian synth companies, I'm thinking like, I want to say is Erica Synths and Electron and like Teenage Engineering. They're Swedish, I want to say, but they are like, $1,800, $2,000. And so I think it's okay that a thing that has a lot of capability and also is a giant piece of hardware. You're paying
and it's custom made.
And it's custom made. So I'm not as worried about the price point, especially since I have a lot of sort of higher profile people that are interested once we get it working. But, they're only going to buy so many. So that's why we're just releasing one at the start. And then we'll start to release the other ones as we go. Because financially, I've spent so much of my own money to make this happen. So it's, I have to be a little careful that I don't tap out.
So let's talk about nocturnal birding and also to the connection to birds. Listening to the record, it might not at first be audible, but there is a lot of bird song on the record. Sometimes real recordings, sometimes where you imitate the bird song. How do we have to envision that, or how do we have to imagine that? So Tristan is walking and hiking, and all of a sudden he hears something, and then it automatically clicks, or?
Yeah, let me give you, there's different ways. And actually, like on Titmouse and Titmice, those songs were more lyrically inspired, both from birds, but also by border angels experiences.
We'll come to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. And so those aren't necessarily songs that have a direct bird connection. But Meadowlark, first song in the album, first main riff with the guitar is softer. That's the song Eastern Meadowlark. And that, related to Border Angels as well, was a song that I remember sitting, and we had a welcome table where we would give migrants that were trying to apply for amnesty who had just walked for a few days in the wilderness with bags, all extremely tired and cold, giving them hot tea and letting them sit down for a second. And I remember just this moment where the bird was singing in the background, and it was a really powerful moment for me. That song coupled with this sort of heartbreak of the situation that those folks are going through. And so that song, the lyrics that are after that, like Worlds Apart, Waves Between is sort of just like about people leaving their homes and making this incredible journey. Like they're not just coming here to take people's jobs. They're coming here because they are absolutely desperate.
Yeah.
And in a situation, nobody wanted to leave their families. So.
Yeah, that's probably the part where you feel like alone on your own, right? Because most of these people come by themselves, right?
Well, there were those situations on amnesty and refugee claims. You would have a whole family, but a lot of people will come like with people that they've met now, because refugee and amnesty claims are no longer a thing in the U.S. Trump has shut that down.
Yeah, we'll come to that
yeah.
POS in a moment as well. And of course, there are several tracks on the record which also simply have the name of a bird, right? And sometimes I also have the feeling as if you're emulating bird sound. And sometimes I even had the feeling as if Doug is trying to emulate bird sound. So how did the two of you get into, okay, this is what we can do with a guitar, this is what I can do with my machines? How did you, by now, after several years, like say, okay, you do this, I do that?
Well, Doug understands that like Author and Punisher was sort of, as much as we wrote this album together, he understands that like it's still gonna, because he has his psych rock band, and this has sort of been my baby. So I sort of
and he also has a kind of a plague band. If somebody wants to look into our archive.
Yeah, exactly. And so we basically, I would start out like I think on Rook. That's a song where I basically mimicked the sound of the rook is like then I took my guitar and I was sort of like and then Meadowlark, as I said, that's exactly the song of the Meadowlark. Thrush, that first keyboard part is the wood thrush song from beginning to end.
Okay.
The wood plays it like that. So that runs through the whole song. And so then I would take Doug took his sort of high-pitched guitar and weaves his way in between those keys. And then I did the bass line following that chord progression. And we did that on a lot of songs. Both of us would just sort of like listen and find ways to weave in and out of it.
You indirectly already hinted at it, and therefore I have to put my finger on this. Is Author and Punisher now a band, or is it still your project and you get somebody in who is as well skilled as Doug in order to help you perform some of the tracks?
No, Doug is in the band now. I mean, a lot of bands, like, he had so much input. He wrote so many parts, he wrote the leads. And, that's going to continue to develop. And we have a Nine Inch Nails cover that's coming out, and Doug sang on it. Actually...
Now, of course, I have to guess. Wait, which one would you... First of all, an older or a younger one? Younger track?
Older. Well, 90s.
Yeah, that's still old. And I mean, like, as handsome as Reznor still is, I saw it a couple of months ago, but he's not for 20-something anymore. Let me guess. Broken.
Well, we had to do Downward. It was a cover album of Downward Spiral.
Ah, yeah, I've heard about that, but I didn't look it up. So I'll find out which one it is, and I'm looking forward to that one, Tristan. Do you play it live?
I don't think so. I mean, it's not we can get into the style of this album musically, but it's not really. We have a sort of vibe that how we want to play right now live. That from Doug and I playing together on that whole tour for Krüller, we sort of found out the kind of style we wanted to play, like how much more abrasive live, not a lot of sequences, not a lot of pre-recorded material. We wanted it to be played him and I, and the Nine Inch Nails song was kind of a studio track.
Yeah, I mean, like, one also has to be clear about it. I mean, like, putting the songs out as a studio recording is much easier than performing them live. I mean, like there is a reason why Reznor has like what I think a 5-member backing band nowadays. So you're only
Yeah,
two.
and that's kind of the thing that a lot of bands that are industrial bands that exist now, we don't have the money to bring 5 people around.
Yeah.
So I understand the tendency for people to have a lot of sort of backing tracks, but I'm not a fan of it. I think it really takes away from the quality of heavy music. If you're going to pre-sequence it and it's the same every night, you just press play and you sing along or play along with your own guitar track. Not a fan.
Well, there can be something to it, but I also can't see you doing that. Let's put it like that. So the style of the record, I mean, like it's clear. Krüller was a lot more slow dive, a lot more Cocteau Twins. This one again is a little more Godflesh.
Little more Godflesh. I would say like abrasive in the way that I wanted to have chugs. I wanted to have guitar chugs because it's something when I started Author and Punisher, I had guitars. And so I really wanted to have that. And so when I started just chugging away, I would record the guitar into the computer, take it down to the studio, and play my machines around it. So like, okay, somebody just sent me some guitar tracks, I'm going to play. And so I started weaving my synth in and out of the guitar to accent it so that we're not just both playing the same thing the whole time. Where I'm playing as a bass player, Doug is playing as a guitar player. And so that for me is like, just adding the guitar and the chugs allows it to be more industrial metal, you know?
Definitely. It maybe Godflesh was a bad comparison. I think there's, in a way, I also hear a lot of. I think there's also a lot of Ministry on it, you know, in a way. But you know, okay. And then there is this other thing that I always enjoyed with Author and Punisher, but this one takes it to, I think, a whole nother level. And this is the visual element. First of all, a shout out to you picking Lucille, one of our old friends here who also already did an interview with us for Roadburn. How did you get to know her?
Man, Lucille, I saw her post. Yeah, I think it was a Roadburn connection. We just got in touch on Instagram, but basically, like, I was playing Elden Ring at the time, and I love that game. And her artwork sort of reminded me of some of the Elden Ring artwork. And so I was also had this bird thing in mind, and I was looking for an artist. And so I just wrote to her and I said, hey, maybe we could do something like Elden Ring bird related to the album. Sort of mixing fantasy with this hike and bird idea. And so we started talking, and of course it turned out that it wasn't a drawing. It turned out to be a photo because she lived near a bird sanctuary, and there was a South American vulture, which is essentially like a hawk, that she was able to hold with a glove and sort of like take some pictures of. And there was also in the video that she made.
So before we had this little break and before Mr. Schoen dropped his phone, we were talking about the artwork for the new record done by the wonderful Lucille Jolie. And so how much free rein did you give her to do for the artwork?
Well, she started and actually started with an illustration sort of based on, which is now one of our t-shirts, because I basically used every single bit of illustration that Lucy did for me, whether we used it or not, into merch and everything. But we both sort of knew that the first illustration was really good, but not cover powerful. So we, you know, in previous situations, sometimes with artists, you know, it gets a little bit heated because somebody likes it, somebody doesn't, or we want changes. But she and I were always in line with each other. It was amazing. Like, I feel like I've made a true friend, even though we've never met in person. I can't wait to, you know, hang out and at a show and
have a meal or something. But she then, the way she says it, she meditates on. She's like, I'm going to meditate on this, and then I'm gonna know the right answer. So she'd go meditate in her garden, and then come back, and she decided she was going to go to a bird sanctuary that was down the street. And yeah, as I said, the South American vulture. And she also had some owls, and she did some close up on the owl eyes. And then I also think you can see some of these birds and the feathers like in the video that she made. So yeah, we found one that was just some really powerful pictures of the bird. And we ended up going with a photo, which was not her, it's not what I thought we were going to get. And we both decided it was the right image. And she played around with it a little bit. And then we also included some of these, like, because of the border wall with some of the work I do at the border, we sort of included this sort of wire. Then on the inside, there's some drones, drone aircraft, bird connection, a little bit of Elden Ring, like on the back cover with these sort of monsters.
Okay.
So anyway,
So yeah, but I know what you mean when you say like there can be tensions between artists and musicians, but there is one thing that I always feel about Lucille, and that is there is, at least the way that I met her, there is not an ounce of arrogance in that woman. She is just really friendly.
she's very straightforward.
Yeah.
And there were times when she said, I think I'm done. Like, this is it. I think I'm done. I'm like, okay. And my manager's like, can she tweak this? And I'm like, no, we're done. She's done. She's done enough. And, managers and labels always want little changes. And then you're just like, nope.
Yeah, sometimes. When talking about artistic contributions to the record, then we have to talk about the fact that you go full global scale on this record, because you have, apart from Doug, two more artists and one project basically that contribute. You have Megan from Couch Slut, New York, I think, right? You have Fang from France, and you have, and I hope I pronounce it correctly, Kuntari from Indonesia. I mean, like, I can see the first two, but how did you get to know about Kuntari? How does that collab happen?
It was a path that started with me wanting to build a gas mask, a mask that had gas engines on it. And then when you would blow or bite down, the fumes would shoot out. And to sort of, get your frustrations out on the environment, as I like to say. That's a real American thing. So I was going to make that. And then I contacted this group called Future Laundry, which is a fashion crew out of Bali. Ichan and Amanda run that. So I got in touch with Amanda on Instagram because she makes this sort of cyberpunk fashion, upcycled stuff. Really great. I posted about them a lot. So we got in touch and I was like, okay, I need help. Do you want to collaborate on this mask that I built? And you can build like a flame-proof hood so that if the thing catches on fire, I don't disfigure myself. So we got in touch about that. And she said, yeah, let's talk about this. So we started talking. And it sort of transitioned from talking about a mask to talking about making a music video in Bali. They live in Bali and Denpasar in Indonesia, which is, Bali is known to be like a tourist island, but
it's the hippie retreat.
What?
It's in Europe. It's known as a place where the middle-aged hippies go to do some meditation.
Yeah, and of course, there are people from Bali, indigenous people that have lived there forever, that have their own lives, that are on most of the island. And there's one little section that is like yoga retreats and people doing pills and partying. So luckily, I didn't even go to that section, and I got to hang out with them in their little, like, their compound where they have a store. It's almost like a little temple where they sell the stuff. They make the clothing there. They have this little compound. It's beautiful. And so they got me in touch with Kuntari because I wanted to collaborate with a local musician. Well, they're from Bandung in Indonesia, but I heard what they did. I'm like, oh God, we got to do this. So they sent me some tracks. They were excited about it. So then I took the beginning of Titanus, or Titanus, or tight anus, as I like to say, because I am a tight ass. So you can spread that around if you like.
Oh, you did yourself. I don't have to, you know.
I'm a tight ass. Ask Doug. You know, like he's not allowed to take his shoes off in the van. He's not allowed to hang his underwear up on lampshades and
The worn ones or the fresh one?
He only has one pair of underwear, so the one.
Yeah, but he shares it with Moses, so that's okay.
But he doesn't smell bad, surprisingly. Doug is a well-groomed individual. Otherwise,
But let's get back to Kuntari. So they sent you some tracks, and then
it always goes into Doug's underwear at some point. They sent me some tracks. I made it into Titanus. Ended up being kind of like, I feel like it's like the most hard-hitting, sort of short, compact song on the album. Yep. So we knew it was going to be our main video single that we'd release first, which is usually the one that people tend to listen to the most. So we all convened in Bali and Denpasar at the Future Laundry compound, and Manda and Ichan directed a video that we all acted in, where we're getting massages, and my mask features, it's this sort of wellness, doom, jungle, mechanical vibe.
Yeah, there is a certain dichotomy to it.
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, I got massages in like 4 different locations. So I was just fucking fun, and we did a concert together, and we played the song live. Although Doug, I couldn't afford to take Doug with me because I used the entire budget
on the massages
just to fly there. So Doug, the guitar parts were played through the speakers, which I don't like doing, but we did what we could, and we had a concert. I played a bunch, they played a bunch, we collabed on the song, and we hung out for a week, and it was just a lovely time, except for when I got sick a little bit, but other than that, it was amazing.
And there is also something to the fact, I mean, like, it seems you have never been one to shy away from collaborations, and you've always had other people, for example, master and mix your work. That is not the thing, but I had a feeling as if on this record, Offer and Punisher is opening a lot more to different musicians from different backgrounds. I mean, like, let's be honest, the most obvious of those 3 collaborations is Fang, right?
Yes.
Not to diminish the track in itself. I think Black Storm Petrol is an amazing track, and I think the punch that they gave to the track is amazing. But is that also something that you are now striving in? I mean, like, I think it's 20 years of Offer and Punisher now, so venturing into new terrain?
You know, it's interesting you say that, because to be completely honest, I turn down so many collaborations. I find them to be...
Yeah, because you're a tight anus.
I'm a tight anus. I don't like that. Usually in the past, when people have wanted me to do remixes, collab, and I say yes, when the time comes to actually do it, I'm so fucking annoyed that I agreed to do it, because I really want to work on my music and my craft. And a lot of times when I hear people collab, I'm like, okay, this collab was for the fans. It wasn't for the music. Mm-hmm. You know, I always think artists do better with their own vision because they're digging so deep into their minds. But when they collab, there's sort of this like, okay, this is like a Spotify thing. Maybe with the exception of like Health's collabs that they have done have been really great. I find that
and I think it's also because Health is one of those unpinnable acts.
Right. And maybe the body has always been really good at the body. No, the Full of Hell, Nothing. A couple of those songs that were on that release were just like, oh, wow, this is special.
Well, if we go that way, then I have 2 more that do that the same way. And that is Primitive Man and Uniform.
I don't. Did they collab together,
Uh
or do you mean their own collaborations with other
yeah,
artists?
for example, Uniform doing the Boris thing, or Full of Hell doing stuff with Primitive Man. Those are artists who are able to, and that is the same with Health. And that is also something that I now see happening with Offer and Punisher. Those people are so clear about their own artistic vision that they are able to go ahead and not give a fuck anymore about genres or being boxed or being labeled. That they know, okay, I can do this now within my own project.
Yeah, I think I agree what you're saying, and some of those are really good. I love Primitive Man. It's just epically heavy. And I love the Uniform Body collaboration was fun. I toured with them. Great guys. Um, but yeah, I guess I'm sort of like, yeah, I guess I'm sort of, the combination has to work, and I just don't want to do it for the name.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with what you're saying with the Fonch collaboration. Like, I think that one for me, I was a little bit worried about initially because we do a lot of the same things. But when we sent them the tracks and it came back, I sent them the song and then they added to it. They were so meticulous and did so well to pick the song apart and take away and add in. Like the double kick that they added to it, the sort of like double time guitar thing is so nice on the record. It's such a breath of fresh air because I don't do that anywhere. I can't play double kick. I can go.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, like as fast as you want to go, your hand will never be as quick as feet.
And so I actually will. We're gonna play that song live, and Doug is like, "How are you gonna do the double kick?" And I said, "Well, I'm gonna sequence that because that's okay because that was Fonge's." And there's like two different guitar parts. We're probably only going to use one of them live. Doug will kind of go between the two, but I have to have that double kick. And sort of there's a chord change that they added at one point, which sort of takes you into a different realm and comes back, and things that I wouldn't think about. And so we're actually discussing doing more tracks with them. We were supposed to do it. I just ran out of time because I knew this record was going to take me like 2 months to prep for live because I'm bringing so much more gear with me on this tour. And so from like a logistical and from me practicing, I had to put the hold on doing a collab album with Fonge.
But by the way, that might be one of the most interesting packages this year that I have heard and I'm also very much looking forward to that because you're playing with Bong Rao.
Yeah.
Who came up with that combination?
Well, I played with him before,
Yeah.
maybe back in like 2016, 17, something, but when he was doing like full breakcore.
Mm.
And we toured sort of through just like maybe some German shows, maybe, I don't know, a few. I had a different agent. Ansgar was my agent, Ansgar Glad from
my Proud Mountain?
Yes.
No, yeah.
Yeah, he was booking, and so we sort of had, and so we did that, and now Bangura has sort of changed a little bit. He still does that stuff, but he's got sort of more of a Godflesh industrial thing going, mixed in with some of the breakcore beats and whatnot. So yeah, stoked. We've been chatting. We've known each other for a long time. He did an Author and Punisher remix with Gore-Tech, Terror Bird, and Flesh Ants back in like 2012 or something.
When we were still both young.
Yeah.
I have one more question before we get to the gritty political stuff, and you've already mentioned it. You've mentioned the new mask and the fact that you are finding somebody to make it less dangerous. How far would you go with new gear? In general, not just with this mask, but in general.
Well, I've always restrained myself from taking gear to the point of ridiculousness because it's never been my interest. The mask, this gas mask is kind of a joke. Like it was sort of a fun thing. I was like, oh, that would be funny and also kind of cool. But I also realized that inching into Mad Max territory. And
yeah, it looks a little bit. Yeah, it looks a little bit like Fury Road. Yeah,
it's a little bit of like a prop. And I don't really like doing props, but a lot of my masks are things that I make, and they're sort of acoustic experiments, but I've never used them that much live. There's sort of something that I like to do to amuse myself on the side. But in terms of regular gear, I make this gear to be practical. And I don't do it to be RoboCop. And I like to make things that are tactile, that allow me to interface with sound in a way that use things that feel good. You know, I like them to look, I like the audience to notice when I'm spinning something and it's controlling a drum sound. They see the motion, so it's not this, it's this. So they get that direct visual feel connection with the sound system. Everybody benefits from that. But there's a point, I don't know if you saw, there's a video of some dude riding on some giant robot arm at some metal festival last summer that got sent around everywhere. Everybody and their fucking mother sent it to me. And it pissed me off because I'm like, that's not what Author and Punisher is. Author and Punisher is...
Oh, you mean like people told you like, okay, you should do this? Something
well,
like that?
Anytime anybody sees anything that's weird with machines and sound, they send it to me. And, you know, that's fine. I appreciate that. It means that I'm in their minds, but like, I build stuff. I come up with ideas. I'm like, oh, that would be cool if I slid that thing and then these things work together, or, oh, I really like that device. I try to keep my stuff really simple. I spend a lot of time with the internal mechanisms to make sure they slide right, really simple things. So I'm probably not going to take it that far. I'm going to make small changes and get better at them. Like if you notice, I haven't changed this thing for many years. I built 3 of them, and once the third one kind of sucked, so I went back to the second one, and I probably will build another one, but it'll be a different version of the same thing, because it takes me a long time just to learn to play that.
That's it's also has to be playable, right? I get that.
I don't want to build some crazy thing that looks really cool that I can't.
Yeah, and then you only get one burp out of it, right?
Yeah, I don't know. And I've had a lot of people ask me to build them custom stuff, and it's the same thing with collaborating. Like in the past, I probably would have said yes, but now I'm like, I won't name any names, but there was a big band in Europe that asked me to make them some stuff, and I said no because they wanted something that looked really cool that wasn't functionally that cool. And I'm like, I don't make things that just look cool that are sort of fake. That's steampunk. Like,
you're more in this Bauhaus version, right? You know, like form follows function, not the other way around. Yeah, I could see that. So you have already mentioned something, and I quickly want to dip into this, and you've mentioned Border Angels. Maybe for the European audience, you explain quickly what it is, and I hope that everybody who listens to it automatically understands why that is an important thing.
I'll try to keep this kind of brief because there's a whole history of like people crossing from Mexico into the U.S. It's a militarized border in a lot of ways now, and there's also prevention through deterrence, where the deserts and the mountains from San Diego all the way through Texas are pretty like remote areas, and the government decided that they were going to try to get people to cross when they came into the U.S. through the most dangerous area. Areas with vast desert in the Sonoran Desert, south of Tucson and Arizona, and also the mountains in California, which are, if you start at the border, you're hiking for anywhere from 3 to 6 days, to get through these mountains. Border Patrol knows you're there, but they want you to suffer, because if they figure you suffer, you'll tell, or people find out that people die.
You tell the others, right?
Right, prevention through deterrence. But it's cool. People don't need to die there. Border Patrol knows they're there. They know they're dying. Often they leave them in there for a few days after they've died. So anyway, we go out and we find where these paths are through the mountains, and we leave water, Gatorade, electrolytes, medical kits, cans, and there's many groups across the Southwest that do this. So, and I started doing this in 2023.
Do you think that the importance of the whole idea has increased over the last 9 months?
Well, I think, I mean, I think Border Angels started in the late 80s, so they've been around for a long time. And there's another group called Borderlands Relief Collective, which is, we collaborate with them. They do some of the stuff deeper into the mountains in the more dangerous areas. When I go out with them and hike, there's also one called El Otro Lado. And then I'm wearing a t-shirt of one right here, the Ajo Samaritans, that's out in the desert. And we did a drop with them last March. And then there's one called No More Deaths, and they're extremely active in Arizona. No Mas Muertes. So I wouldn't actually, since Trump got in office, the amount of people crossing the border has reduced because people cannot get amnesty claims anymore. A lot of times what they would do is because the system of trying to apply for amnesty is broken, there's a website you log into, you just sit there and wait forever. So people would just cross in.
Oh, you mean like literally broken? It's not just metaphor.
It's broken, but you would never get through. It would take months and months. You're desperate. You can't live in a shelter in Mexico forever. You've got dangerous situation with like cartel violence and gang violence. So you would just cross illegally or come across the border and try to get picked up by La Migra or the Border Patrol and then say, I want amnesty. So they would take you to a detention center. You would apply for amnesty. You'd see a judge and they'd give you a thing and then you'd stay for a while until your court case came before a judge and then you would have a hearing. Right now, they just send you to a detention center and right back to Mexico. So now people are forced to go into even more dangerous areas, and they're not trying to get picked up by Border Patrol, which is putting people in more perilous situations.
So it basically becomes an even more dangerous hide-and-seek situation.
I mean, we've seen people out there that we come across who've been out hiking for 5 days, and their clothes are tattered, their shoes are tied on and duct taped. They've been drinking water out of the rivers because they ran out of water, which is a health hazard. And, we can't tell them where to go. It's illegal. So we can only give them medical aid and water.
Would you be allowed to point in directions, or is that already too much?
I'm going to say no. I'm just going to say, we can say, want to see Border Patrol, we can take you to Border Patrol, or we can call Border Patrol. I don't even think we can take them to Border Patrol. My Spanish sucks, so I don't say anything. I mean, I know how to say certain things like comida, agua, but I try to, you can get into real big trouble if you start doing stuff like that. You can just say, hey, we have water for you. Do you need help? I'm trained, all of us are trained in wilderness, first responder, medical stuff. We've had training, so that helps. But yeah, I've really taken this seriously. I go out once a week. If I could do it full time, I would.
I normally do not quote my brother-in-law, but this time I want to. My brother-in-law has a saying that he uses pretty often when people around him complain. And he always says, okay, first world problems. Is that something when you do that where you notice, okay, the things that trouble me, and you've been speaking, about sometimes not being able to sleep and stuff. Are these moments and experiences where you notice, okay, in a way, I'm living a dream?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have a roundup at the end of our hikes and we have volunteers and we talk and we say hey, what's your experience? What was that experience like for you? Because, we come across shoes, clothing, backpacks, bottles, remnants, religious artifacts, candles, belt buckles of Things people left. We have really good hiking gear, all of us. I have backpacks, German hiking boots, all this shit. And so people mention that God, we just did 6 hours and I'm really tired. And these people, in many cases, are traveling with sneakers. And and they have to sleep at night in the middle of the woods, you know, with a trash bag over their head for 5 days, and they've been traveling maybe through all of Central America. So yeah, it does put things in perspective, and like it makes you think that like these people that are traveling did not just say, "Hey, I'm going to go take somebody's job in the United States."
Yeah.
Like, no, they were leaving. Nobody was going to go through that hell unless they had to.
Yeah, and also something that I always tell my sociology students, you know, nobody wants to leave home. Nobody wants to leave home.
No.
And if life takes you that far, then life sucks in that moment. And now, when you do this, I mean, like, I know that Offer and Punisher is not an explicitly political project. But does it inspire or incite some moments where you say, like, okay, I should use that power that I have, that little power, or how much you want to quantify it, but I should use it to be a little bit more explicit?
Well, I have always found ways to get my point across in a way that's not as reactionary. You know, every single bit of news that comes out that is terrible, I could make a post. But I don't do that. I post when I feel like I can have an effect. And I use my lyrics and I don't talk about politics at the microphone because I'm not comfortable doing it. I don't talk at all. I don't ever say anything. Most of the time I used to have effects on my voice, so you wouldn't even be able to understand it. But like, I try to find ways. It's like when you're talking to like your super right-wing, like uncle or whatever, you know, I don't have one of that right-wing uncle. You don't just fucking write to him every time something you know is going to piss him off. You try to have a conversation with him at an entry point that will have effect. And most of the time, I'm preaching to an audience that is progressively right in line with my thinking.
Yeah.
So I don't always find the need to say free Palestine or fuck ICE. I try to find other ways to do it. And I find for me, I do it through my volunteering that I do. And I say stuff when I find it to be necessary.
And then, I mean, like, to clarify this for everybody, we are recording on the 19th of September, and 2 days ago, Jimmy Kimmel was taken off the air.
Yep.
And I do not want you to go into that, but isn't it the way that now at this very moment we should all speak more, say more?
Yeah, I mean, all I see on my Instagram though is people speaking about this, you know.
Yeah.
And it was the same about when Palestine, when everyone was when the bombs were falling, and it was it still is. It's brutal, but I don't need to share the same thing that every other person is sharing. Of course, I do have a lot of followers, but
interestingly, if you did it, you would be again preaching to the same choir.
Preaching to the same choir, and I find it to be, yes, it is necessary. Artists should use their platform, but I just feel like I'm getting inundated with it already. So I find I'm like, okay, this is out there. If nobody was saying anything, but everybody's saying everything, like everybody's speaking, and I'm like, so I'm trying to find points where boots on the ground from my perspective of an artist locally. I go to events. I'm involved with immigrant rights. My wife is an activist. She works in racial justice. So I'm very aware of, she actually does social media for a group called Show Up for Racial Justice, which is, it's called Surge, SURJ. And she also is a member of DSA, which is Democratic Socialists of America. And she's like a chair for the local chapter. So yeah, I am conflicted about that. Like, how much should I just post constantly about this? And I probably should post more.
I indirectly didn't. I first of all, I didn't want you to say that because, and here's what I think. I mean, if you were Leonard Skinner, no, just let's assume. Then it would be cool if you posted a lot of shit in from your own political perspective, like, okay, we do not agree with the president, we do not agree with his action, that action, blah, 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 because you would probably have a lot of followers who share the same thoughts as the orange piece of shit in the White House. But as your followers, just like, for example, also most of the followers of health or any other of the groups or a lot of the other groups that we mentioned before, they already share the similar thinking. And if you post it constantly for maybe like the 1% of your listeners and have a wrong opinion, you would probably lose the time to do the boots on the ground work that you are doing. And therefore, I think as important as it is to speak up, it might be even more important at this very moment, not just to speak, but not just to do the talk, but also to walk the walk. So congratulations on that, Chris.
Yeah. So the way I feel about that is I had a conversation with somebody that one of my friends said, I don't post politically, and I know he's political, but he doesn't post. He said, any artist who doesn't post, is like dead to me, or he made some really negative comment. And I was saying, like, I was sort of sticking up for him and saying, although I do think my friend should post more, because I do think everybody should be outspoken about it. But what about, in the same way of Leonard Skinner, there's a lot of people out there, and I think I brought up like LeBron James or like tennis players or, people that have a unbelievably huge following who profit off of giant companies like, CBS, and who make movies with them. They're the ones that can really have the impact, because what am I going to like? Relapse really doesn't have any money, my label. Even like Spotify, it's like, I understand why some people are not pulling out of Spotify right now, even though they probably should, because there aren't really any other options, and we're already making no money as musicians. Like, and we're not making any money off of Spotify, but at least it's giving us like exposure.
Platform.
I can't sacrifice the exposure because I'm like barely hanging on as a musician as it is. But if some of these really big musicians like Taylor Swift made a stand and pulled off of Spotify, and then all these other ones, then maybe things would start to change. But It's not fair to ask to get to cancel, I think, an artist who's barely alive, who's staying alive, for not dropping off of Spotify, for example, or leaving Instagram. And give us a fucking break. Like, give us another solution. I mean, yeah, granted, if all of us underground artists moved over to Bandcamp or Tidal or whatever, that
but let's look at it. You are already all on Bandcamp.
Yes, I am on Bandcamp, but I'm not using it as my main. I'm trying to get everywhere. So I think we have to be a little bit forgiving of the other small artists that are just barely getting by. And I am forgiving of other artists. I think you can at one time be completely supportive of like anti-Israel, but you can also
still be on Spotify.
Be on Spotify, even though Spotify has been known to invest in this other companies that have defense connections to Israel, because the world is complicated, and to cancel this person for doing that, do you want me to dig into the things you're buying at the store that have a connection to Israel? Like, how deep do you want to go here? And it's easy for people that are like idealistic, maybe younger folks, to make that stand. but like be educated about what you're saying because it's complicated out there right now, especially in a country like ours where capitalism is capitalism, you know, and everything
Yeah.
is dirty,
I
man.
mean, like,
Everything is dirty.
yeah, and you know, looking at the US, we have to be clear, there are so many basic problems and basic paradox. I mean, like you have the coasts versus the flyover country. You have an only two-party system. You have people on both sides of the aisle who do not care about their districts, but more about their own wallets. You have an overaging Congress. You do not have enough young people getting into Congress.
Yeah.
And so on and so forth. I mean, like, and that's what I meant. You know, I think we are at a point where talking is very important, but at the same time, you know, let's be honest. A lot of American and also California economy wouldn't survive without the help of immigrants. So in some way, you know, you also have to put your boots on the ground and help those people survive.
If I have a giant fuck Israel thing on my Instagram, I'm not going to be traveling to Europe.
Yeah, you will, but you will not be getting back in.
I will not be getting back in.
But it's nice over here. You might think about that.
Yeah. I know it's not 100% sure that that's the case, but
Yeah.
at some point, and so I can say it on an interview with you, and I'm very supportive of all that. Fuck ICE and all this shit, and fuck Donald Trump, and fuck Charlie Kirk, but you know, I'm like, still want to go to Europe and play my music. So
If you don't get back, I still have a free apartment downstairs.
yeah, I'd probably go. My wife and I would go live with like Lucy in the countryside of France. But thank you for the invite.
I don't know who's the better cook, Lucy or me. I would take that
Oh,
up.
that's a good point. French food's pretty good though. French food, German food.
I don't cook I don't cook a lot of German food. Don't worry about that. You
Okay.
get more Filipino and Italian food in my house.
Ooh, nice.
Kristen, before we get you into more trouble with Border Patrol and with re-immigration into America, let's end this as usual with the quick fire round at the end. So I looked at our old interview and looked at your answers, and I chose those answers which were interesting to me. And based on some of those, I'll give you some others. So, for example, in our last one, I gave you the choice between Cocteau Twins and Slow Dive, and you decided on Slow Dive. So I'll give you two of their records. The classic Souvlaki versus the latest one, Everything is Alive.
I did not say. I must have said Cocteau Twins
I'm pretty sure you said Slow Dive.
because I don't even know any slow dive records.
Maybe I'm old and misunderstood.
Shit.
Then I'll choose for you, and I choose Souvlaki.
Okay. I'm
Also
sorry.
because it's a great Greek dish. But I'm very sure you said when being confronted with ministry versus Godflesh, you said Godflesh. So I'll give you Selfless versus Street Cleaner.
Selfless.
Mm-hmm. And then you chose Neubauten over Throbbing Gristle. So I'll give you Halber Mensch, half a man, versus Collapse.
I'm sorry. I don't even know.
I'll bring you a copy.
I know. I'm gonna get canceled right here.
Nah, all good. And I know you're a soccer fan, so the question must be, what do you think is more important? Or what do you like to see more? A good defense or a good offense?
Good defense.
Mm-hmm. And what would you prefer, watching the final of the Champions League on TV or being in the stadium for the final of the MLS?
Wow, that's I'd have to say final for MLS. There's nothing like being in a MLS is actually quite entertaining, and being in the stadium is really. I go to some games now at our local team SDFC, so I would say stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
And one that I took from this interview, you've mentioned, or we've mentioned Mad Max. So I'll give you a choice between classic Mel Gibson, the first Mad Max, versus the also pretty good Tom Hardy Fury Road Mad Max.
Yeah, I'll go classic. Classic.
Okay. So, Tristan, first of all, thanks for all your time. Thanks for the entertaining answers, for the openness, and I'll see you in 1.5 months on stage.
Yeah, hit me up. We will definitely have you in there. We will share a beer, and we'll see where our teams are at that point in the year.
You mean my Bayern Munich outrunning the European Champions League?
Well, you've got Luis Diaz now, Lucho.
Yeah, but he's not been integrated that well. But before we get into nerd talk and everybody tunes out, Tristan, we'll do that when you're in Frankfurt. So enjoy the rest of your day, my friend.
Take care. See ya.
Take care. Bye-bye.